brother's last night, brother's last line. It's brother's last time till we see him tonight. It's brother's last flight, it's brother's last sight. It's brother's, well, it's brother's last night. It's brother's last night, it's brother's last line.
Welcome to The World This Week. I'm Tony Eastley. Trouble in Algeria, fires burn across Australia, and Pakistan's president is arrested on corruption charges. All of that later. But first, patrons of a Sydney cafe in the leafy North Shore suburb of Crow's Nest were shocked to see an abduction played out before their very eyes. Christopher James Sagewood, a Melbourne buck-toothed personality, was snatched from his table by what was described as a group of intelligent, muscular and very witty ninjas. The description was given by one of the group as they fled the scene in a rented van. Moments earlier, the dozen or so black-clad ninjas snatched the handsome fiancé, his description, from his cafe table, right before the sparkling eyes of his stunning betrothed, Sydney Smith. Placing a cheap yet eco-friendly bag over his head, the men bundled Sagewood from the cafe. His soy skim latte was left to go cold. A stunning yet approachable witness at the scene, Adelaide Eastley, was left to calm patrons, especially one who'd leapt out a window as the debonair Sagewood was manhandled by the splendidly in-shape ninjas. Some footage has emerged, but be warned, it is amateurish.
What the fuck?
Well, it's brother's last night. It's brother's last night. It's brother's last line. It's brother's last time till we
We used to, when we were little kids, put soap on each other's bellies and slide down each other's bellies into the water. And he leant over to slide down my belly and farted in my face, as big brothers do. And I was pretty pissed off because it stank really bad. And I think it was about time that I needed to, you know, like, get him back. So I was like, hey, Chris, can I slide down your belly now? And then he's like, yep. Puts the soap on the belly and I bend over. And I think he tells her, like, I was so happy. I was so, like, awesome, you know, so confident. And I bend over and, because I knew that I was going to, but I think I don't think I needed to fart, so I think I pushed really hard and laughed at the same time and ended up peeing on his face. And then I was like crying.
So when I was with Chrissy Sagewood in La Paz, we were staying in this area called the Witches Markets, and Chris had been talking to all the backpackers and he'd found out about this cactus that you could eat, and it was, you know, supposed to provide a spiritual kind of enlightenment, or you know, some significant life-altering event would transpire if you ingested this cactus. And Chris, being the energetic guy that he is, and you know, we wouldn't normally do this kind of stuff, but he decided that he'd go and find this cactus and we'd have a real, you know, South American spiritual enlightenment moment. And he went with one of the other guys, and he found this cactus. I don't know how he found it. He went down and asked everyone in the street probably, and you know, with his broken Spanish, found this old lady who said that the best way to have the cactus was to eat it. Also, was to understand. He said that, you know, if you ate the cactus, that you'd have a bit of a vomit, and then you'd have 12 hours of enlightenment. And he came back with this, and we're all a bit tentative, to be honest. You know, it sounded a bit intense, but he's like, no, it'll be fun. And so we got the room set up, and we, you know, put mattresses down everywhere, lit candles, and had, you know, probably Radiohead in the background or something like that. We were sitting there for a while, you know. We'd eaten the cactus. The cactus was horrible to eat, probably the worst thing I've ever eaten, and didn't feel very nauseous. Kept trying to convince ourselves that we felt nauseous, but nobody really did. And then after a couple of hours, Chris revealed to the group that, you know, maybe he had misheard what the old lady was trying to tell him, and maybe instead of, you know, vomiting and having a 12-hour hallucination, perhaps that in 12 hours the cactus would kick in, and then we would vomit, and then we would have the spiritual enlightenment. But by this point, we were scheduled to go and hang out with crocodiles and monkeys and, you know, pythons and anacondas and all that kind of stuff in the river. So, yeah, we were freaking out a little bit after that.
In high school, Chris and I were quite close. We spent pretty much every weekend together for 5 odd years, and spent a lot of time jamming and hanging out and messing around, and occasionally we get bored, and one such occasion we decided to set up a skateboard ramp going from the bottom of Neil's driveway up the stairs into the house, and everyone would bumboard down the driveway into the house. Chris got a bit brave, did it standing up, landed in the doorway. Enough said.
Yeah, I don't even know Chris.
Something about it. Definitely remember something about a tree. Being scared, him jumping out of a tree in Edinburgh. Beers. Being put in a bin, running into a pole, jumping off benches with Corey. Soccer training.
Yeah, I almost met Chris once. I was asleep and he came round. Not much else really happened. He came round and I was asleep.
Okay, funny stories about Chris. I can think of one particularly good story that comes to mind, and that's when the 4 of us, myself, Devlin, Jared and Chris, were in Bolivia somewhere, and we were just a bit travelled out, and we desperately needed to eat some pizza like 4 Australian guys do. And so we went down this dirt road to find this pizza joint. And we got as many pizzas as we possibly could, and I think we had to wait about 2 hours or something, and when we got back to the hostel, and the hostel floor was just notoriously slippery, and Devlin already came to terms with it a few times earlier in the trip, and I just have this distinct memory of when Chris took his shoes off and he was trying to get over to the bed to get the pizzas out, and he just got a little bit too excited, and I just remember him having this 4 or 5 second battle with the floor, and he was just slipping all ways, and then the last image I have of is Chris like this with pizzas being flown in the air, and then Chris smacking his head onto the ground and then getting up with this apologetic look like, brothers, I've lost the pizzas.
Man, Chris Sage, man, he's a crazy ass motherfucker, man. You don't know that shit, but he's a crazy ass motherfucker. I remember this one time, and he called me. That motherfucker called me. He said, I want to do some crazy ass shit today, man. I'm like, yeah, man, what you want to do? He said, I'm out of order shit, man. I said, what you want to do, man? He said, I want to rob a motherfucking bank. That motherfucker, I love that motherfucker. Wanted to rob a motherfucking bank. I said, yeah, man. I'm a gangster. That's like a Tuesday afternoon for me. You know what I'm saying? So then we you know, we go rob this bank. Balaclava's on, you know, crazy ass shit, man. We rob this motherfucking bank. Chris is all up on the desk with a gun, like, give me your fucking money. It's a crazy ass motherfucker, man. And then so we leave the bank, 25K in our pocket. Leave the bank, and then this big fat guy, big hero, comes up to Chris. He's like, you can't go anywhere. You can't go, man. So Chris, crazy ass motherfucking Chris James Sagewood, pulls out a gun and pops this motherfucker straight in the chest. Motherfucker killed a man.
No, we fell asleep on the veranda together once after a big night at his place.
Yeah, I hope to meet him one day.
I think the one of the funniest things I ever saw Chris do was fall down a rabbit hole, because I was chasing him down the side of the house, and we used to have rabbits, and the rabbit dug a hole, like, you know, so big, and I was chasing Chris. I can't remember why, but his leg just went straight down and he just flipped. And yeah, I don't think I think he fell down the rabbit hole. I think that day his spirit went down the rabbit hole, and he's never been the same since.
Brothers last night, since brothers last night.